think it's worth trying on. Self-focused, not self-centered, not selfish, but self-focused. Gandhi even said, people think that I do this for others, but I do this for me. I do this because it makes me feel good. Welcome to the podcast, Tapping Creativity, with myself, Matthew C. Temple. And each week, we're going to dive into questions and issues and inspiration around creativity and the creative process. All right, I got to be real for a second here. I can be a jerk, and I think you probably can be too, and I'm going to tell you why right now. So I read a lot of books. I buy a lot of things online. When I read a book, a lot of times I actually keep track in Goodreads just so I can keep a place of where, books I want to read, or I'll just kind of keep track of books that I have read. When I finish a book, unless it's really, really bad, which has happened probably once, or unless it's really, really good, which has happened a few times, I don't leave any kind of review. When I buy something online that does exactly what I expect it to do, I don't see a need to go in and give it any stars, because if it's doing what it's supposed to do, it's good enough. Now, a 5-star in theory would mean it exceeded my expectations. It was perfect. What does that mean? A 3-star is kind of like meh. 4-star? I don't know. It all gets too confusing, so I don't want to deal with it. So what I don't do is rate things that I buy online or things that I interact with. And yet, when I go to buy something, when I go to choose a podcast to listen to, one thing I do is I look and see what are the ratings. Right now, for example, I am broadcasting from Nairobi, and I'm staying in an Airbnb. And of course, before I book an Airbnb, what do? I go and I read the reviews. But I'm not very good at leaving them, and you might be like that too. So I want to ask you right now, before you listen any further today, just go ahead and do me a favor. Be a little bit unlike me, and wherever you're listening to this podcast, go and give me a rating. If it just meets your expectations, a 3 or a 4 is fine. If I'm exceeding your expectations, a 5 would be very appreciated. And even a little note, what you like about it, whatnot. It's just, that way when somebody's scrolling through it thinking, is this a podcast I want to listen to? They won't have to wonder. And if you think it's something that other people will benefit from, a little thumbs up, some stars, a little note about what you like, something that will help others to do what we do all the time, which is to say, who else likes it? And so with that, I'm going to go ahead and get right down to it. Welcome to today's episode of Tapping Creativity. It's Matthew Temple. I am broadcasting today, as I mentioned already, from Nairobi, Kenya, here for the month. And so we'll be having our conversations from here. And when I was on my way here a couple of weeks ago, I made a little bit of a decision. And the decision was, what is best for me in this moment? What's just going to serve me the most? I want to try that on. So I'm someone that tends to be a little more on the empathetic side, a little more on the compassionate side, a little bit more of, is this good for everybody, or is this good for other people? And I just wanted to try on thinking of me first, because I've said it so many times particularly when it comes to the creative process. And I'm trying to remember exactly where I've said this, but we've heard this many times. You're flying on an airplane and they're telling you how to, survive in case something bad happens. One thing they say, when the oxygen mask comes down, put yours on first before you help others. If you are not well taken care of, it's really hard to take care of others. And in the creative sphere, that in some ways is even more profound. And it's more profound because there's always something or somebody, maybe not something, but there's somebody who needs something a little bit more than your art, than your creativity needs. So it can come across as a little bit selfish to be like, you know what? Somebody might need help with this might need to get done, whatever it is. But you know what? For me, for what I care about, for my art, for my creativity, I'm going to prioritize myself. This is what I need to do right now for me. This is what's best for me. That's really something to consider, because in some ways, taking the time to create could be considered a little selfish, right? If somebody's hungry in the other room, you go make them something to eat. That would be nice. You could be, there's all these things you can do that are not those things. And so I've been trying this on, and I'm not used to it, but it's something that's also feeling really good. So as I mentioned, now for the third time, I'm here in Nairobi, and not a day goes by where there is not somebody who I see who is in great need. Whether it's somebody who has some of their basic needs met, but not all. Whether it's some kids coming up and saying, hey, can you give me something to eat? Or somebody who's got some sort of deformity or malady and they're begging for money. Sometimes it's, if I'm in an Uber and, there's somebody who's in a wheelchair and kind of wheeling up and down, seeing who can offer. One of the things that happened before was I would feel bad. And I had to be really careful because there's also only so much, no matter how much time you have or how much money you have, there are also limits to those things. And so I had to be create certain rules to say, well, I got to kind of shut myself off a little bit, because if I feel into the compassion that I'm naturally feeling, if I'm empathizing in a way that is almost like too much, I have to shut myself off to not feel it. Otherwise, like I said, it can be too much. So when I said I'm going to do what's best for me, one way to look at that is what's best for me is, well, certainly don't give anybody any money. I want to retain the most money I can retain because that's what's best for me. But that's not actually true, because you know what? I would say I'm probably been giving a little bit more than I have in the past. And the reason for that is that I'm saying, is this what feels good to me right now? Is this what's best for me right now? And it's really quite a wonderful feeling. Gandhi even said, people think that I do this for others, but I do this for me. I do this because it makes me feel good. And this being like extra empathetic doesn't necessarily feel good, right? If somebody is suffering, we can't actually take their suffering from them. And so how do we show up for them in a way that actually serves everybody? And it's just a question to ask. But it's also, as I'm doing this, before I make a choice, does it really serve me? And there are some funny kind of pieces around this too, because I find myself, also, again, as a sort of an example, I could pay somebody to wash my clothes, or I could put it in the washing machine. And there are a lot of people here who would love to wash clothes and make some money doing it. And there are times where I can say, you know what? It's just easiest to throw it in the washing machine and just wash it and be done with it and not think about it. And other times there's this, you know what? I'm going to bring it to somebody and have them do it. That's what's best for me. And at different times when I'm thinking about it, there's a little bit of a letting go, almost a levity. Where I eat, do I go to a place that I know is, a big sort of expensive place that caters towards Westerners or wealthy Kenyans? Or do I go to the little kibanda, sit on the little wooden bench? I like to support those small entrepreneurs or small restaurateurs, if you can even call it that, right? But I also like to go sit in a place that's just nice, with nice silverware and good ambiance. And so this question of coming back of what's right for me. And I think it's worth trying on. I'm really enjoying it. And at some point, maybe I'll kind of circle back in and we'll see how that's evolved, how that's shifted, how that's changed. But right now it's feeling really good. And I'm finding that when I do, I can actually honor myself and I can honor others. And in some ways, I'm getting out of some of the sort of saving others or this obligation that I have because of certain privilege that I have. I'm letting that go, and I can really be present in the moment in a new way. And I think it's also going to really serve my creative work as well. Because as I said, when I sit down to write, there are other things that I could be doing. There are other needs that could be met. But that's something that I can do for me because I love it, because it feels good to me. And maybe someday through that, there will be gifts that I can give to others through that work that I do because I love it. So with that, I'm going to wish you a very self-focused, not self-centered, not selfish, but self-focused creative week. And I'll see you next time.